The next roundtable is very dear to Unbound as a whole because it talks about innovation, which is the theme of this festival. This is all about innovation. And we have an expert panel led by my colleague Rahil, which will discuss the evolution of legacy. So I'll leave you with Rahil and his panelists.
Thanks, Jose. Good evening, everybody. I know it's been a pretty long day, especially for some of us standing at registration most of today. So we'll make this quick and painless and very informative. So we're here to talk about the evolution of legacy. It's about how companies and industries that have been around for a long time are evolving, disrupting, but still keeping very much to the core of what they are meant to do. So why don't I have my panelists introduce themselves and we'll take it from there. Enon?
Okay, I'm Enon Landenberg. I'm from Israel, from a small country. We're doing some innovation there in Israel. I started a digital agency in 1998. It's the beginning of the internet. Later on, I sold it to a small marketing agency called Publicis. And nowadays, I'm running all kind of venture. The leading venture I'm running now is a venture called Bosco, where I'm trying to solve the problems of parents to know better when their kids are sending and receiving nude images, are going through cyberbullying attacks and other threats we have on our kids.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gerald. I'm a co-founder of MSRI. We are a specialist provider of AR and VR in edutainment, publishing, and education. So what we do is that we help publishers, schools, content brands to turn physical products into an AR experience. So that's we are based in Singapore. We are a spin-off company from the National University of Singapore.
My name is Michael. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Eatigo. Eatigo, in a nutshell, is in the business of connecting empty stomachs with empty tables. And we do this via a concept of time-based discount. We're a yield management company. We've seated a good 4 million people so far. TripAdvisor is our main investor. We're operating in Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia, and adding a few more markets during this year.
Cool. My name is Rahil. People call me Popeye, the way I look. And I'm running a company, a cloud-based business cloud management company. What we do is that helping the company to manage the business cloud contact. And we have 80% market share in Japan and decided to go to Singapore market and serving Japanese government, Toyota, Japanese bank, you name it. So, a lot of people having a challenge when it comes to business card. Attending this kind of conference and exchange a lot of business cards, but we don't know what to do with it. So that's why we are helping the company to create the database and put it into the cloud, and you can share the contact information within the same company. That's what we do. And hopefully we can do IPO sometime soon. So.
I hope so too. I guess, let me start with you. I mean, you sold your company to a tiny agency called Publicis, as you mentioned. So you started off in the beginnings of digital advertising. So why don't you tell me a bit about what's that journey been like for you?
So, when we started with digital, it was animated GIFs. And Google did not exist yet, or Facebook, or YouTube, or what we are actually using today. But I think the main thing that changed is that when we started in digital marketing, the advertisers were used to speak one to many. They used to put the TVC and they assumed that everyone liked the same TVC, and then they stood up from the sofa and went to the supermarket and bought their product, and it was an amazing world. Nowadays, it's all one-to-one. They need to be very direct to their clients. They need to be much more innovative. They need to be much more relevant. It's very complicated for this field right now. But I think that the whole world, the whole value chain in a lot of market changed. Because, if I'm looking on what I'm doing right now, I'm working around a solution that actually we're not supposed to solve it. We didn't make the problem. Someone else made the problem. In the past, it was normally the governments made the problem and then they solved the problem. Nowadays, most of the problems we have in our life are not done by the governments, are done by other companies. The governments are not manufacturing foods that are bad for our health, or are not manufacturing cars that drive too fast or unsafety. And what we can see today is that the whole ecosystem is changing. So instead of government making a problem and solving it, today there is some kind of a company that is making a problem, and now we need to find a way to solve it. And the government is not moving fast enough, so you can find other companies that are solving problems that other companies are doing. And I think this is the main change we have today in all the ecosystem. And it's not only on the marketing field, also in the marketing field. Suddenly, the consumer has a voice. If someone does something bad to him or he doesn't like the product, he publishes on Facebook, and suddenly he kills the stock of a company. So this is where we are standing right now.
Okay, that's so Michael, as you were speaking earlier, actually, you mentioned that in the food business, it's just a massive collection of SMEs, that there's no real sort of giant in there. So why do you think it's been this way?
See, I think it's an idiosyncrasy of the industry, but it really changes how disruptive new players relate to existing players. In a lot of industries, insurances, for example, or transportation or e-commerce, disruptive new players really go out to hurt the old dinosaur who is in there and owns the place. And it's dangerous for the legacy players to face the challenge of the new players. In food, it's different. As you say, most of the players are SMEs. There is no real restaurant giants in most countries, and they have small marketing budgets. They are not very technologically savvy, and they are operating on high levels of efficiency. So we actually come into these markets to work with them and for them. And it creates a very different dynamic between disruptors and legacy players. We see ourselves actually more as an enabler, because we improve profitability, we improve a lot of business metrics for legacy players and bridge that technological divide gap that they're facing. And it's something that is quite different from most industries for food.
I mean, going from a massive industry like food to something as specific as business cards, Popeye, I mean, what does it take to focus so much on just something that we all honestly just take for granted? Like, I have about 75 business cards on me right now.
Sure.
Can you help me?
Sure, of course. I think SME, particularly SME, we have to focus on the people. And large enterprise as well, we collect a lot of contact information, but then most of the time, you keep it to yourself. And then many people using LinkedIn, I understand, but that's for individual users. But what if we share the contact information within the same company? And SME, you know these people, that people, but if you're not sharing the contact information, you can't expand the business. That's why we are providing a tool how to leverage the relationship that you have within the same company so that you can support each other. And AI, for instance, we are using AI technology as well. And then sometimes you don't know your London office has some contact, and then if AI is coming up with a recommendation function and saying that why don't you start contact with this person for the potential business, and well, maybe 1 out of 10 recommendation it leads into the new business. That's a great thing. So those kind of stuff, new technologies, is definitely helping not just a large enterprise, but also small, medium-sized enterprise. And cloud business, the cost is getting lower and lower, and even the small, medium-sized enterprise can leverage this kind of technology and then create the new business based on the relationship. Because at the end of the day, any business you do, it's all about people. And if you build the relationship, you want to maintain, and you have to leverage that kind of relationship, whatever the business you do.
Awesome. I guess, Gerald, you work with education, but in particular using AR, VR, MR. Now, these are words that we hear many times a day. So why don't you help me understand, where do you see the convergence between education and these kind of connected media technologies?
So just before I take that, before the thought slipped my mind, I want to explain what Michael says about the legacy businesses. The topic for this panel is actually really good. It says evolution.
Thanks, I came up with it myself.
That's cool. Instead of revolution. Because let's put that into perspective. The largest education company is a former employer of mine. That person does about like $7 billion revenue. The largest education startup, and you can name any one of them, I guess they probably do excess of 100 million. And that's, of course, it's very fast growing. But just put it in the right perspective, they are nowhere even 10% of the largest education companies. So what we need to do is to find a way to help the legacy businesses evolve rather than trying to disrupt them completely, because they have existed for a long time for good reasons, because they have created solutions that fit market needs and demands, and that's why they are in existence. Of course, they are under challenges, but not to say that they are going to go away overnight. So I think this is where we come in, our company MSR International. What we are trying to do is to help education publishers, textbook publishers, trade book publishers who are facing a declining or stagnant market, and help them engage readers in a new way, with a new dimension of information that enriches the reading experience. We call that blended reading. So what does that mean is that instead of just reading with text and images on a print-based material, they can now actually enjoy augmented experiences on top of the print-based environment using augmented reality. So it could be as simple as scanning a textbook and then seeing a 3D image of a skeleton structure coming out, which is very difficult to visualize if you are a 12-year-old. And then, or alternatively, a trade book, you are reading about this travel guide, and instead of just having to go in and Google Maps and finding out everything about that, scanning the page brings you directly through a Google API to a 360 view. So these are the things that we are adding, additional dimension of information to enhance the reading experience, and to kind of think that is the key thing, so that we are not actually breaking away the business model, we are not actually breaking away the current behavior, we are actually enhancing it. So that's why I think that we are helping legacy business transform in a gradual evolution manner, rather than just trying to come in and say, hey guys, we are the shiny new toy, a shiny new company, we're going to save the world of education and publishing. I don't think that's what we are out to do.
So I guess this is to the panel. I mean, is it the SMEs that are going to drive this forward, the startups, the agile guys, or are these push factors going to come from the big corporates or even the government sector?
From my point of view, it's going to come from the small companies. It's not going to come from the big ones. The big companies are constantly trying to maintain what they own, and we're all used to use iPhones and Android smartphones with touch screens. But when iPhone was launched, it wasn't only the touch screen. It was the whole ecosystem change. They took a major part of the revenues of the operators. And it came from a small company, relatively small company, that came from the side of the market. It wasn't one of the four big manufacturers, because the big manufacturers were constantly thinking on how they can work together with the mobile operators. They said, we want to work for ourselves. Mobile operators will join later. And this is actually what's happening in every market that we can see disruption. Normally it won't come from the big companies.
I think, big companies definitely helping, to push the technology advancement. But, with the technology, we can really, improve our efficiencies. But what we really need to focus on, whatever the business we do, we have to focus on the people and being effective. So being efficient with the help of technology, and then we get more time and resource, and to think about how we can take care of the customers. And then it's all about people and how we can take care of the customers. And before, without using technologies, we are so tied up with little things, how to automate things, how to make things efficient. But now with this kind of technology, whatever you guys do, helping the clients and the customer to focus on the people, and that's what we also do. Because at the end of the day, when you meet the people, that can be the business partner in the next few months or few years later. But you never know. How are we going to manage the contact information is so critical. Whatever the business you guys do, I'm sure.
I think the big players and the small players start at different ends of the spectrum. Like the small disruptors, they have the disruptive ideas, but they don't have the customer base. The big players have the customer base, but they don't have the ideas or the capability of pushing them through.
Right.
So now the small player starts growing the customer base, and it takes time. And that time frame is the time that the big players have to get their act together and react. And whoever is faster in moving into the other quadrant is the one who is going to be the agent of change. Right?
So my perspective then is, based on past experience working in Samsung, big company. I would say that inherently, big companies have a culture and structure that is going to make it, from a starting point perspective, less agile than a small company. And that's normal. Because if, let's say, you're a senior manager running a division in a big MNC, what are you going to be doing? Every morning you wake up, you're going to worry about your quarterly numbers, right? That's only the nature of the business, right? So you're going to worry what sort of operational work that I need to be doing in order to hit my 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year target. Of course, at the highest level, you have R&D units, etc. But it's all the same, right? At the highest level, they will also say, what is the new product that I'm going to release in 12 to 18 months? So inherently, the structure is there. So they will definitely have a slight disadvantage compared to the pace of a startup with no inhibitions, no legacy, no back-end packages. But of course, that comes at a price for the small startup, because you do not yet have a clearly defined value proposition. You may not even have a clear path to profitability, and that's why you have to be super agile. You're pivoting, you are understanding you're learning what customers' needs in real time, and trying to change your business model, your operations, etc. But by the time they figure it out, congrats, they're actually moving on to become like one of those big guys, and they will start to face the pains of growing up too.
So I guess the beauty of connected internet technology is it allows us to achieve economies of scale much quicker with much less resources than they did in the past. So do you think that this quadrant between SME and big corporate, is it going to become more SMEs, more corporates? What are we going to see? Is it going to be like advertising and we just have big tree and a bunch of small guys, or is it just going to be an utter proliferation of SMEs specializing in very specific things?
Advertising field is totally changing. You can see that the creative is leaving the big guys, and more small, young agencies are more creative in the world. But I think it's a very complicated question to answer, since it's really, in the end, it's a lot of visionary. Because once a startup starts to work, Samsung acquires a lot of startups for their technology when they are very, very young. It's a different way of acquisition than other big corporates. But they have other corporates that go and acquire ventures when they have already consumers or revenues. I think that we're going to see still that we're going to have these big monsters in every field, and they're going to go on acquiring technologies and service providers and whatever. I can say that in the advertising field, it's something that is common for the last 20 years. Until last 20 years, they used to acquire only big monsters. Publicis acquired Saatchi & Saatchi, Oliver Barnett, but in the last 15 to 20 years, they started to acquire small specific agencies because the clients are looking for more services. And suddenly, instead of one point of contact, they need 20 points of contact within the group. The same thing happens also in other industries.
So, maybe just to add color from the education industry perspective, just curious, how many of the audience here have attended a MOOC course, massively online open courseware? Coursera, Udemy, EDX, so quite a number. So that is an example that is surfacing education at scale. So the smartest and the most famous professor doing a certain class, instead of being limited to the size of the lecture hall of say 200, 300, 500, can now put their content online and then get an audience of 100,000 students. So it will increasingly become that kind of model where, just like any other internet businesses, where the winner takes all kind of approach. Where if you are the number 1, 2, or 3 player, you get massive scale because your market is global. And then if you are somewhere in the middle, then of course it's going to be challenging. And then of course there will be this massive long tail of innovative small startups all trying to break into the top. So for every one of those top players in the digital field, in the education space, you can bet that there's another 1,000 of them that are still trying to make it or has already given up. So I would say that the bottoming out is really big. So the bell curve that, the dumbbell effect, very big on the very big side, a lot of players on the very, very small side. The middle portion is going to middle out and narrow out a little bit in the SME.
And it doesn't always have to be, big corporate against small startups. Because for us in food, there is no big corporate, right? Restaurants are mostly SMEs, and we have a situation where there's not always the problem made also. Sometimes the problem is just there. You see, we deal with capacity utilization. Airlines run at 80% capacity utilization globally. Hotels run at about 80% capacity utilization globally. Restaurants run at 30% on average. Now you see, the global market for sit-down restaurants, not talking food stalls, not just talking proper sit-down restaurants, is $2.6 trillion US dollar. And there is $2.6 trillion US dollar operating at a 30% capacity utilization. Right? If you can just lift that 10 percentage points, we're talking an incremental global market potential of $260 billion. This is a chunk that is huge, it's global, and it's a problem that stems from nothing else but the lack of efficiencies from SMEs, right? Because they are not very high tech, they don't understand algorithms, they don't understand yield management, It's very easy for American Airlines to do it, it's very hard for Joey's Pizzeria to do it. And this is where we come in, and we don't compete against a big player. We actually help a global industry made up of SMEs, get the act together on efficiencies.
I agree with Michael. There's no big corporate versus small, SME. And depending on the industry you are in, food business obviously small, medium size. And those are the ones coming up with a unique, sort of flavors and, cuisine. And so big corporations definitely come up with a technology and then it kind of cascade down. And some of the technology can be applied to, small SME in the food industry, for instance. Reservation, that's another thing. Cloud company definitely helping, to sort out all the restaurant reservation. That's a lot of restaurant owners spending a lot of time to manage the booking. That's one thing. And then you have to maintain the relationship with the customer, loyal customers. How can you do that? In the past, you used book and pen, a notebook and pencil. But now, with the cloud technology, you can manage the contact information, and you can even email blast and try to stay in touch with the people and through the SNS. So there's a lot of communication tool you can use. So I think to answer your question, big corporation versus SME, no. I think, depend on the industry. Big corporation is definitely helping a small, medium-sized enterprise, and then create this kind of market size, making the pie bigger. So I think in my industry, definitely people, contact information is so critical. If you don't remember a person's name, you're not going to do business with anybody. And then you have to know the mobile number. Yeah, you can use LinkedIn, but you can't get the contact information when it comes to mobile, and it's through LinkedIn. So you can send out an email, but then if you meet the person, exchange the business card, why don't you manage and share the contact information within the same company so that you can have a closer touch? And then whatever the new product you're coming up with, a new service you're coming up with, you can share the information through email or social network or whatever. So those are kind of things, it can be used for food industry or advertisement, because at the end of the day, any business, it's all about people.
Or you can have a cool name like Popeye, no one will forget Popeye.
That's right. Unique nickname. Yeah.
The big advantage, Today, it's so easy to start a business. I remember when I used to start 20 years ago, you need to talk with an accountant and a lawyer and to print receipts and invoices and to print business cards. Now I don't need business cards. I go directly to Popeye.
Yeah.
You needed to do a lot of things in order to, you needed the office. Now you have all kind of WeWorks and shared office. We can now start a business together. Let's think about a fast idea in the next 2 minutes we have. Start a business, and we can start manufacturing, do whatever we want in China or virtualization. You don't need servers. The big advantage is we also die very fast as businesses. This is the big advantage, because imagine that all these businesses will really go succeeding for 5, 10 years. Well, everyone will be a business owner. Business owners are a little bit crazy, so we don't need all this mess around us. I think that we have a natural evolution, and the rationality of it is that we die much faster than we used to die before, because it takes us less time to start businesses.
Well, I guess those are words to live by. Could I please have a round of applause for my amazing panel?
You're going? We're staying here.
I mean, I gotta go exercise a bit and pop
Let's
an
go.
inspiration. I think I will sell his fitness regime for money.
Thank you so much.